The highway transportation system, or the HTS it's called, encompasses everything that you are going to encounter on the roadway. It is the pedestrians, the buses, the bicycles, the motorcycles, the mopeds, the other vehicles, the animals. Everything that uses our transportation system is encompassed in the term highway transportation system. When you are out here, you're interacting with these other users of the HTS. That is what selective seeing is about. When new drivers first begin to drive, they have what they call information overload, where there's such an ever-changing environment, there's so much going on that it's difficult for them to focus. Selective seeing, which is recognizing your signs, learning to scan the roads, is picking out particular things that are of interest to you on the roadway. Now, beginning with the most vulnerable, I want to talk about these people that you are interacting with, people, persons, vehicles, etc. The most vulnerable person on the HTS are your pedestrians. You must always yield to a pedestrian for obvious reasons. They are very vulnerable. When you have to yield to a pedestrian in an intersection, that means that that pedestrian has stepped up on the curb and has cleared the intersection. You must yield to them. If a pedestrian steps out between two cars, you must yield to them. As a pedestrian, you need to realize that there are a lot of pedestrians that are killed and injured on our roadways. If you are a pedestrian, especially at night, you need to wear light clothing or something reflective. You need to always face the traffic. Always walk where you can see the traffic. Just because you can see them does not mean that they see you. Always, when you get out of your car or you are entering your car, face the traffic. And when you are walking down the road, that is not the time to be texting or using your phone. You need to have your mind and your vision on the traffic that you are encompassing. You have to interact with them. Pets can run out into the road. When they do, swerve, be sure you look behind you in your rearview mirror and be sure you check your blind spot before you swerve. And be watching ahead for them in your neighborhoods. Watch for those animals. If you're scanning the road properly, you will see them in advance. Another thing that we have to deal with are large animals. We have deer, we have bear, we have a lot of large animals in the country in Virginia. When you hit a large animal like a big buck with your car, if you hit them at a high speed, they're going to go straight up and can come back down into your vehicle and cause severe injury or even death. You don't want to be you do not want to hit a deer. When you're out in the country, especially during certain times of the year, hunting season in particular, you need to be scanning the road for them. And when you see the warning sign of a deer crossing, deer are habitual animals. So they're going to cross at that area every time. Be watching. They are also, deer do not see well at night. Deer actually use their sense of smell, not their vision. So when the light hits their eyes are blinded immediately. So realize that a deer, even though you are there and they're on the side of the road, they can totally be blinded and not see you and can unexpectedly walk out in front of your vehicle. You don't want to hit a deer or a bear. We do have some large bear in Virginia. You hit a 350-pound bear, it's going to do some damage. Now, a small animal, when you're driving in a little squirrel or a bird or some small chipmunk or steps out in front of you, try to avoid them. But if you are going to wreck your car, be rear-ended, you're going to have to just go ahead and go forward. They're amazingly fast. You'd be surprised. In the state of Virginia, you may share the lane with a bicycle or any vehicle that is propelled by human power, which is a bicycle, a skateboard, a scooter, anything that is humanly propelled, you can share the lane with them, which means you can be in the same lane with them. But you must leave them by law 3 feet. Now, 3-foot measurement's the tip of my nose to the end of my finger. That's not very far, but you have to leave them that much. It is also legal in the state of Virginia to cross over a solid line, yellow or white, to pass a human on the side, a pedestrian, a bicycle, a skateboard. You can actually cross over that line. That is the safest procedure for that person and for you to cross over. In order to do that safely, if you are in an environment where there is someone coming towards you and you have a bicycle, or there is a blind curve, a blind hill, and there's a bicycle or a person beside you, you need to remember, minimize, separate, and then compromise. By minimize, I mean you need to slow down, follow the bicycle until you can see through the blind curve, for example. Or hurry up and pass the bicycle before you reach the blind curve. Do not take or attempt to navigate 2 hazards at the same time. You divide those hazards, separate them. The compromise comes in is when you have gotten yourself in a compromised situation. You're coming around a blind curve, someone's on your side, and you're right lined up with a bicycle. Now where's the most injury going to occur? Those are things that you need to be thinking about, because your natural inclination is going to be to swerve right, but if there's someone beside you, you're not going to be able to do that. That's compromise. That is also something that new drivers do not automatically do. Driving is mental and it's visual. You have to be thinking about what you're doing. You cannot do that if you're doing something else. When you are riding a bicycle or when you are around persons on a bicycle, have respect for them. When you come up behind and there's a bicycle in your way, you can lightly tap the horn to let them know you're there. If you ride a bicycle, you'll realize there's so much noise and so much activity and so much sensory input when you're on a bicycle that you can be unaware of a vehicle being behind you. If you're the rider of the bicycle, you need to have a helmet, a light, and a rear view mirror on your bicycle for your own safety. When you are riding a bicycle in Virginia, you ride on the right-hand side and you obey the traffic laws. That means if you come to a 4-way stop, you have to stop with the traffic. That means if you come to an intersection where there is a stoplight, you have to stop at the red light and go when it is green. Now on a bicycle, sometimes they will have a designated bicycle path. That does not mean that the vehicles cannot get in there, but it is preferred that you do not. So if you're driving down a road and there's a bicycle painted on one of the lanes, that is reserved for bicycle or a bicycle preferred path. If possible, leave that lane open. If you're riding on a bicycle, you can get in the left part of the lane in order to make a left-hand turn, but you are to use hand signals on a bicycle. You're to signal left, right, and stop on your bicycle just as you would in a vehicle. Another vulnerable user of our HTS system are motorcycles. You have to realize that these motorcycles are very vulnerable to you. Most people, I believe, tend to look beyond the motorcycle into the traffic, which is where that is most threatening to them. When you see a motorcycle, realize that they're vulnerable and give them special attention. Focus on that motorcycle. They're going to weave in and out of their lane or on both sides of their lane in order to avoid things that you may not even see. They might have to change, their position in their lane when you would not have to. Realize that you cannot share the lane with them. A motorcycle in Virginia is considered the same as a vehicle. To pass a motorcycle, you have to change lanes and go around them in a passing zone. You cannot pass a motorcycle in a no passing zone. It has to be a legal pass. They are considered the same as a car or another vehicle. You cannot share the lane with a motorcycle ever. Two motorcycles cannot share the lane with each other. Now sometimes you will see them staggered, but they do not ride side by side, not in Virginia. A motorcyclist must have a helmet, a light, be registered, have a motorcycle license. There are 3 classes of motorcycle license that you can get in Virginia. You can get a Class 2 motorcycle license, which is for a 2-wheeled motorcycle. And now in Virginia we have a Class 3 motorcycle license that is for a 3-wheeled motorcycle. Or you can get the M class, which is for both. When you want to get a motorcycle license, you can get a separate motorcycle license, or you can have the M added to the driver's license that you already have. You must take a class, you must take a knowledge test, you must take a road test, and you must hold a learner's permit. When you have that learner's permit, you have to have a licensed motorcycle driver with you when you're on the road, and may only be on the road after half an hour after sunrise and a half an hour before sunset or during daylight hours. And don't forget, when you're in an intersection and you hear a siren, to watch for that emergency vehicle. A lot of times in the larger intersections, they are sending a signal to change their side to green so they can go through. But not every intersection has that option. So when you hear an emergency vehicle, slow down, roll your window down, and scan that intersection looking for that emergency vehicle before you proceed out into the intersection. Another thing to watch for are mopeds. Now in Virginia, we have recently changed the moped law. Just in the last couple of years, the law has been changed to where even though you still don't have to have a driver's license, you must have a state-approved ID in order to drive a moped. You must have that moped registered with a license plate on it. You must wear a helmet with a face guard, and it must have lights, just like a motorcycle. A moped, however, is considered a motorized bicycle. It is not the same class of vehicle as a motorcycle. They cannot go over 35 miles an hour, and you may, if you need to, share the lane with them. However, it is best to change lanes in order to pass a moped. Another vehicle that you are going to be sharing the road with are heavy vehicles. Now the heavy vehicles are your most dangerous threat on the road. You need to stay back from them so that you can see around them, and that increases the visibility. If you're passing a heavy vehicle, a semi-truck, a dump truck, or anything that is large in front of you, a bus, be sure that you're back far enough that you can see the lane where you are going. If you're on a multi-lane road, you want to be able to see where you are going on that road. Do not pass when you are too close. You never know what's on the other side. You also need to stay back because of your stopping distance. Remember, your stopping distance increases with your speed. So when you're following a semi-truck on the highway, you need to be 5 seconds back. They can change lanes and do a lot of different maneuvers that you need to be prepared for. Another thing about trucks, and I am going to show you a video on safely sharing the road with trucks, is they have a huge blind spot on both sides, but especially on that right side. Do not ride in a truck's blind spot. When you come into that blind spot, they see you come in, but they're waiting for you to come out. If you travel in that blind spot, they can forget you're there and take your lane. If you get stuck to where you have to ride beside a semi or a large truck, and you know they're in their blind spot, watch their front tires, because they could decide to change their lane and you have no recourse except to protect yourself.